Greetings. Welcome back to another edition of the Has Been podcast. I am your resident has been uh, here at the Greater Lafayette Sports Report. Once again, coming to you live before a studio audience on the back patio. A little chilly today. Might be some wind, but none of this that you see behind you is AI generated. It's all real. It's real leaves, it's real trees, it's real fall foliage. So enjoy it because it won't be here much longer based on the wind conditions here in Tippecanoe County. Um, but yeah, we'll try to get back on the back patio as much as we can, weather permitting. Um, so lots to get to today. Football coming off a dreadful performance at Northwestern. You got basketball, men's basketball starting up Friday in the exhibition game at Kentucky. The women's team um, plays its exhibition game on Monday against Purdue Northwest. And congrats to Dave Shondell, victory number 500 at Purdue over the weekend at Rutgers. Um, he's 12 wins away from Gene Katie's mark as far as all-time coaches at Purdue, but nice accomplishment for Dave. Didn't know how this season was going to play out after losing three in the portal in the offseason. Not just three, but three talented players. But he's revamped the roster and um, ha continues to have the program in the top part of the conference. Now they've got some tough matches coming up. Second half is going to be a little bit more challenging than the first half, and we'll get into that. But first, with football, I guess the news coming out of Northwestern was that Ryan Brown, the starting quarterback, injured his left shoulder, which is his non-throwing shoulder, and didn't play most of the second half in the 19-0 loss to Northwestern. Malachi Singleton took over, but uh, couldn't get the offense in the end zone. They only took two snaps in the red zone, and that was in the fourth quarter, and that was at the 17 or the 18 and the 17-yard line. So it was a step back for this team. We had seen incremental progress from Barry Odom's team here in his first year. But the loss at Northwestern was a step back, just in all phases. Not a lot of life, not a lot of energy there. Defense couldn't get off the field. Northwestern controlled the line of scrimmage, controlled the ball, and controlled the game. What happened in the fourth quarter? I mean, the total yardage and all the numbers seem a bit equal when you looked at them at the end, but keep this in mind. Purdue had 60 yards of total offense going into the fourth quarter. They finished with over 300. So they picked up some, if you want to call it garbage time offense, but they couldn't get in the end zone. They kept turning the ball over, and Northwestern kept turning the ball over too. So they kept trading turnovers there in that fourth quarter. But by that time, the game was over, and Purdue was on its way to suffering another Big Ten loss. And that brings us to, first of all, Ryan Brown, whether he'll play on Saturday or not. Barry Odom said he would be doubtful earlier in the week. We'll see how the week goes. I've heard that Brown wants to play. That's typical. But whether he gets to play, is cleared to play, is another thing. Who do you go with if both are being equal? I mean, if you say Ryan Brown's your starter, then you go with Ryan Brown. If you're looking to change things up or Brown's not 100%, but what player is 100% as you get through the season? As long as he's not compromised and it's his non-throwing shoulder. But still, if you injure it once, you can injure it again. As long as he's not compromised. But which quarterback gives you the best chance to win this game against Rutgers? I'm not looking long term here. I'm not looking into November. I'm looking about right now, because right now is let's be real and let's be honest. This is Purdue's last chance to get a victory this year against Rutgers, because you should know the schedule by now. Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and Indiana, two of those on the road. And Indiana's probably going to come into Ross-Ade Stadium on the Friday after Thanksgiving, 11-0, assuming they can take care of Maryland and some other teams on their schedule. The schedule's not daunting to them. So this is Purdue's last chance in my opinion, for a victory in 2025. The next chance, if they don't win Saturday, will be Indiana State to open the 2026 season. Um, and that Big Ten losing streak will continue. Can they beat Rutgers? Yeah, I mean, Rutgers not having a good year. What we've known Rutgers to be over time is really physical on defense, physical in the run game, and that's not the case this year. They are they are soft on defense. Um, they don't run the ball particularly well. Their strength on offense is throwing the ball, which is not what Greg Schiano is known for. They have a good quarterback, some good receivers, and one of Purdue's weaknesses is the secondary. So this is to me, not to get too out there or circle this game as you know something different, but this is kind of a crossroads game for this program and what Barry Odom wants to do, because you're coming off a really your worst game and worst performance of the season, which you came off a game that at Minnesota that you should have won, but you just had too many mistakes again, penalties and turnovers that cost you a chance to win that game. And it seemed like the Minnesota loss beat Purdue again, whether they just um, didn't have the energy to get back to it. Um, but you only do this 12 times a year, so I don't buy that. And and you start to think, okay, that performance appeared to be just from the outsider, like guys going through the motions. Remember, people are getting paid now. Athletes are getting paid. Um, so how you perform, and I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but how you perform is kind of irrelevant because you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the day. Um, and I do think that creeps into some of these athletes' mind, just not at Purdue, but across the country, um, when things are not going well. And I say this as a crossroads game because this is your last chance to get a win in 2025. Um, I mean, as I mentioned, the schedule. Purdue will be a heavy, heavy underdog in each of those games and should not match up in any of those games as well. So they're gonna struggle against those four teams in November to really generate anything. So this is it. And you get a win here, it makes you feel better. You're going to take your lumps in November, but you got to three wins in a year after you had one. Now, granted, a whole new different team, new coaching staff, and all that, but you got three wins. You can sell some progress. You can sell progress with two, but those two came against Ball State and Indiana State. You need to beat a Big Ten team to really sell things are going in the right direction. And I'm not ready to throw Barry Odom out of town by any means, because things are different. Things are better. They do practice harder. They at times have been more disciplined, but if you equate penalties to discipline, then they're not doing very well. They've had too many penalties. Is that a technique thing? That's just not being disciplined, or it's never just one thing, as I like to say. But this is a big game, I think, just to kind of set you up going into the off season. And not that there's momentum or anything like that, but you start out 2-0. Saw a lot of good things when they started 2-0. Even in the loss to USC, you saw some good things. Notre Dame kind of crushed them for three quarters, but still, they moved the ball. They put up some points. Illinois, passed all over them, but still, they were kind of in that game a little bit. In the Minnesota game, you're right there. You should have won the game, but it didn't happen. And then last week, they fell flat on their face. So they need to pick themselves up. They need to rebound. They need to get a win this week because the next win isn't coming until 2026. And that's why I think this is kind of a pivotal moment for Barry Odom, a pivotal moment for this program, pivotal moment to kind of show that, okay, things are moving in the right direction. And as much as I do see things moving in the right direction or a better direction than what they were a year ago, you still need the wins to back it up. And this is a game that Purdue can win, um, because Rutgers is just not what Purdue has a Rutgers team Purdue has faced in the past. So they're vulnerable in some areas, but so is Purdue. And how much does the offense, how much does the team change without Ryan Brown and Malachi Singleton? He's Malachi's more of a runner instead of a thrower. Brown's a runner too, but has the arm strength to do some damage in the passing game. Purdue's had trouble with drops. So as you get later in the year, weather changes. Holding on to the ball is a little bit more challenging than it has been in the past. And Purdue really needs to get back to leaning on Devin Mockabee too. Um, the offensive line's not great, but there have been moments where they've looked really good. You go to Minnesota, over 200 yards rushing. But I think he had 7 carries last week. Now I know Purdue got behind early, but he's your guy in the backfield. Why he's not being featured more, no idea. But here's a guy that is one of the top rushers in program history. Y'all know his story, but he's earned the right to get more carries here. Now, again, don't know everything that's going on in the program. There could be other things that are playing a role in this, but he needs to be featured a lot more. And I know they rotate their backs in and all that, but he can do it. But he needs help from the offensive line. He needs help from the rest of the offense. He needs help from the play caller. But they don't seem to be leaning on him as much as I thought they would. And again, they got behind last week early, so that probably dictated some of the strategy there. But it's just interesting that he's not getting more carries. He's not a bigger part of the offense. I get the balance part and all that kind of stuff, but he's your guy. He's your guy that you, at the beginning of the year, that you were going to lean on. And there have been games this year where they've leaned on him, but he's still running hard. He's still hitting the hole hard. He's still, doing all the right things that he's done in the past. I just don't think he's gotten enough opportunities. And if things are getting stuffed, they had trouble earlier in the year running between the tackles. Well, get him the ball in the passing game, get him on the perimeter. There's things that you can do to, outside of just handing him the ball, to get him involved in the offense. And, this is a game where I think you pull out all the stops and this is a game that you need to win, and you need your best players to win it. So you'd be curious to see what transpires Saturday from that standpoint. It won't be another 80-degree day. It'll be chilly. It'll be October weather. It'll be fall. So that's when you really need to run the ball and run the clock, win the time of possession game. That Purdue has some deficiencies it has to overcome on the offensive line, but they've proven this year that they can produce in the run game. And Rutgers over the years has been very physical on the defensive side because that's Greg Schiano's strength. But they've been had this year. They lost to Oregon 56-10. Purdue's not going to go 56-10 against Rutgers. Purdue would need a lot of help to do that. But you look back through what Rutgers has done this year, they've given up a lot of points, given up a lot of yards, most of them through the air. I think the last three quarterbacks or teams have completed over 70% of their passes against Rutgers. So, there's some plays to be had. There's some yardage to be gained. I think there's some points to be scored in this game. I'll be a little surprised both teams don't get to 30. And just from since gambling is a thing now, but it's just more of an open thing, I guess. If you're interested in things like that, I came across this stat earlier in the week that in Rutgers' last 15 games, and that goes back into last season, uh, the over, which is the total number of points set, the over is 13-2 in Rutgers games. So they're giving up a lot of points, they're giving up a lot of yards, and they've been playing teams that can take advantage of it. But can Purdue take advantage of that this week? And that's going to be interesting to see. It's homecoming. It's late for homecoming, but that's just the way the schedule breaks. So we'll see what happens Saturday. And Ryan Brown will be when the availability report comes out Saturday morning, whether he's available or not, we'll see how that plays out. But football, this is it. I think this is kind of their game. They need to get this game. Thought maybe they had, as I said, they should have beaten Minnesota, but they didn't. And now they get one more shot to get another win before they go into the hell part of their schedule. And then with those 4 games coming up in November. Men's basketball finally get to play somebody else on Friday at Kentucky, exhibition game. That's the key word there, exhibition game. Doesn't count. No, the numbers count. The game doesn't count. Don't put too much stock into it. It'll just be nice to see them play against somebody else, how they stack up. The last 2 times Purdue has done this, they've gone to Arkansas and Creighton, especially Arkansas. It was Arkansas's Super Bowl because they prepared for it. They scouted. They talked to NBA people how to defend Zach Edey, so on and so forth. They put a lot of time and effort into that. They won the game, and they celebrated like they had won the game, but Arkansas went on to have a really bad year. That's why, Painter plays these games for one reason. You get in a tough environment, in a game that doesn't count, in a game where you can experiment freely and not feel any pressure about, needing to win, wanting to win. They're competitors. The players want to win. They want to go out there and play. They want to go out there and win on Kentucky's home court. No question about it. But, Purdue has done well after these exhibition games. They're a learning experience. Deep down, Painter and his staff hope they get beat because it kind of brings everybody back to earth a little bit. A lot of hype about this basketball team. A lot of headlines about this basketball team. Rightfully so. You have the preseason player of the year, Braden Smith. You've got another All-American in Trey Kaufman-Renn, Fletcher Lawyer. You've added some good transfer pieces with Oscar Clough, Liam Murphy, Omer Mayer. Then you've got 2 guys that I think get overlooked. They're going to get overlooked this year, not maybe here locally, but nationally. The 2 sophomores, Jakari Harris and CJ Cox, had really good freshman years, and I think they're poised. Assuming they get the minutes that we think they're going to get, I think they're going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities because you're paying attention to Braden Smith, you're paying attention to Trey Kaufman-Renn, you're paying attention to Fletcher Lawyer, you're paying attention to all these other people, and here comes Jakari Harris, here comes CJ Cox, and they're really good offensive players. They really embrace the defensive end as well, and I think that's where they earn their playing time is on the defensive end. And one area of concern last year was the rebounding. Purdue did not rebound as well as it did, obviously, without Zach Edey. They were going to have a drop-off, and they did, and that was a struggle. But now that, they're going to move Trey Kaufman-Renn to the 4, most of the time, Oscar Clough is going to man the 5 position, the center spot. He's a double-digit rebounder. He's a rebounding machine. I think last year he had more rebounds per minute than Zach Edey did the year before. So that's saying something. So he's a huge part of what they do. And then they've got depth on the perimeter. And just kind of curious how things play out Friday as far as rotations and who plays with whom and all that kind of stuff. And then they've got another exhibition game after that against UIndy next week at Mackey Arena. But this will be a great experience for them. just don't go overreaction on it, even if Purdue wins, um, because it's a learning experience. It'd be a packed house, great situation for this team. Yeah, that's why Painter probably will never play one of these games at home. They would fill the place at home. That would be another how many thousands of dollars of revenue in this NIL rev share era that Purdue would need to help. But the experience of going to Rupp Arena and then going to Arkansas, going to Creighton, really has, I think, benefits this team. And I think as you get around, more coaches see that and all that. But there's also pressure from some of these administrations to, hey, we got to have some more money here. We got to generate some revenue to help pay for all this stuff. So, Purdue's administration has given Painter the okay to go on the road and do these things. And it's, again, I think it benefits his team. They get in those environments because they're going to go to Alabama. They're going to play a couple neutral site games in the Bahamas. Um, they get some good games at home to Iowa State and Marquette. You get Auburn on a neutral court, but then you're into the Big Ten season, and we all know the pitfalls of playing on the road in the Big Ten and how difficult that is. And these are experiences that really benefit them as they get deeper into their season. Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Fletcher Loyer, they've been through this a number of times. They've been through all these exhibition games. Um, and it has, it just helps them. It really does. And they need to take advantage of it, figure out, because they've been playing against themselves for 2 or 3 months. And now they get someone trying to stop them, trying to keep them from doing what they want to do. Painter doesn't put a lot of scout into this. He'll go over personnel with them, understanding who's who, but as far as going through their plays and all that, it won't happen. They'll adjust and manage on the fly. But again, it's an exhibition game. It won't count. Both teams should benefit from it. It won't affect Purdue standing as a number one team, or it shouldn't. I hope people don't pay too much attention to it, other than Purdue won, Purdue lost. Here's what they did, type of thing. So, hopefully, there's none of that goes on, because after that, one more exhibition game, and then early November the season starts. The women's team has its exhibition game on Monday against Purdue Northwest. They had their secret scrimmage against Missouri State last week. Purdue won by 39 or 40 points. Don't know a lot of details about it, other than the freshman center, Avery Gordon, had 8 points and 8 rebounds, which is a good sign. If she can produce those kind of numbers in 10 to 15 minutes a game, then I think, that's a good thing for this team. But to me, there's a lot of wait and see with the women's team this year. Got a lot of newcomers. They've already had one setback. Taylor Henderson out for the foreseeable future, suffered an injury on the first day of practice, lower body injury. So they're down a little bit on their depth. Point guard's a bit of a question. One of their transfer, Taylor Feldman, still dealing with a sore back, but I think she'll be ready to go for the first game. How much she plays in the exhibition game, I'm unsure about. But to me, Madison Layden's back, or Madison Layden-Zay. She's back. And if I go back to the fan day scrimmages and practices that they had over the weekend, and their release is still pretty good, quick release. I do think this team can shoot their three ball pretty well. I think they'll be improved in that area. I think they shot 32% last year. I would expect that number to climb, because you've got Madison Layden-Zay, you've got Hila Karsh from Israel, freshman, who's a pinpoint kind of shooter. She gets her feet set. I think it's going in most of the time. Kiki Smith who transferred from Arkansas, shot 40% from three in the SEC last year, so that's a positive. Feldman can shoot the three. You've got McKenna Layden. Once she gets healthy, she can shoot the three. They've got some they've got some depth there. They've got some weapons on the perimeter. Uh, just a matter of, when you start playing teams that are scouting you and trying to take that away, what's the counter? Can you still get those shots? And I think they have the potential, uh, not just with Avery Gordon at 6'7", but with Lana McCarthy inside to have a nice inside outside game. You go in and then you find a shooter on the perimeter. Um, and Katie Geralds has said they'll probably shoot more threes than they did last year because I think they're comfortable with um, the personnel they have to do that. She wants to run a little bit more, but you got to rebound to run, and you got to play defense. So they got to keep their turnovers down and all that, and all we'll see how that all stacks up as they get through the non-conference season. But they they've got to at some point this has to turn around for the women's program. Missing the Big Ten tournament was a big deal last year. Um, and the goal this year is not to miss the Big Ten tournament, to be honest. Um, it's not a high bar here anymore. Um, right now, it's about making the Big Ten tournament, getting enough wins in the non-conference, because finishing 500 in the Big Ten is going to be a challenge in of itself with UCLA, USC, Maryland, so on and so forth. Purdue's just not at that level. But making the Big Ten tournament, getting enough wins in the non-conference, trying to steal some, try to avoid the blowout losses that you had last year in the Big Ten, be more competitive in those games, and see where it ends up. Ideally, in the perfect situation, Purdue makes the Big Ten tournament. I don't think they're an NCAA tournament team yet. And then maybe you sneak into one of those postseason tournaments that's not the NCAA, and you make something out of the year. That would be, to me, a nice step forward for the program based on where it's been and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's time to turn this thing in a different direction, and we'll see how this year plays out. They have the non-conference schedule to get some wins. They do have some road games in the non-conference, but overall, it's a pretty soft non-conference schedule. They are at Kentucky, which is a game they likely will not win. They go to Central Michigan, which has been a tough place for them to play over the years. They've been there a few times. And they go to Purdue, Fort Wayne early in the year. So we'll see how they do. But the non-conference schedule set up for them to pick up some victories and at least gain some confidence, gain some momentum, figure out their roles, figure out what they can do, what they can't, and then get ready for the Big Ten. So, we'll see how that all plays out during the course of the year. And then again, with Dave Shondell, congrats on number 500. It's a pretty good milestone for Dave. As I mentioned, no one really knew for sure what Purdue volleyball would be this year because a lot of new faces, a lot of transfers, lost some key players, lost some talented players, but they've accounted themselves very well. They're in the upper tier of the Big Ten right now. Now, the schedule gets difficult here coming up, especially this weekend at Illinois and hosting Minnesota. And then they still have to go to Wisconsin. They still have Penn State coming here. So they've got some tough matches coming up, but they've held their own and probably beyond. I think if you gave Dave Shondell some truth serum, he'd be pleasantly surprised by what they've accomplished this year. They just got to finish it out. They did a top 16 seed reveal, the NCAA committee, and Purdue was number 8, which comfortably in that top 16, which means they would host first and second round games, which has become the norm at Purdue when it comes to volleyball. But they'll probably take a few lumps here in the second part of the Big Ten schedule, but as long as they don't get ambushed anywhere by the end of the year, I think they still got a good opportunity. Their RPI is going to be good. They'll have a good enough record and enough quality wins to still be in a position to host. Um, but we'll see. This is a big weekend for them, I think. Illinois got them here at Mackey Arena a few weeks ago. They haven't played Minnesota yet. They have to go to Minnesota later in the year. But in a normal year, if Nebraska wasn't doing what Nebraska is doing, which is being undefeated and being the heavy favorite to win the national title, I think Dave Shondell would be your front runner for Coach of the Year. And he'll get some support for that, but it's likely going to go to the Nebraska first year coach. But Dave has, you know, Dave has picked himself up after the transfers and also picked the program up to put it in this position. So a lot of credit to him, a lot of credit to the program to keep this thing moving along the way it's been since he got here. And it's a lot of credit to several people. All right, I'm getting cold. It's chilly out here on the back patio, the back studio, the outdoor studio of the Has Been podcast. All right, appreciate you stopping by. We'll have plenty to talk about next week with football, and then men's basketball, women's basketball, see how volleyball did, and all that kind of stuff. Appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate you taking the time to watch, listen, throw tomatoes at it, whatever you do, whatever floats your boat. So again, appreciate you stopping by. Good luck. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.